Hey, you guys, so glad you can join us today. Today is a really awesome day because we get to start talking about some different ways to grow our tutoring businesses. Now, there's lots of different options for us. Some people like to make programs, sell them to their current clients. Other people like to add tutors onto their team and continue in that aspect. And then other people, they just want to tutor on their own. So, the cool thing is there's so many different ways that you can grow your business, and adding tutors onto your team is one of the ways to be able to do that. Now, as many of you guys know, I'm not one of those people who's going to be hiring a team of tutors anytime soon to be able to grow my business. Maybe in the future, but I would offer that up to my husband to run, and I would not run that. So, but what I do appreciate today is that I have with us Hannah Reeder, Dr. Hannah Reeder, who is from North Carolina. She owns, it just totally blew out of my mind here. Serve more students.
Serve more students, good.
And she's going to be sharing with us this whole idea of all the things that we need to take into account when we want to be able to hire on other students. So other tutors so we can serve more students, hence her name, right?
I love it. Absolutely.
So welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Joanne. I am so excited to be here. So yes, I'm Hannah Reeder. I'm from Boone, North Carolina, just a really small town in the mountains of North Carolina. We are unique in that we have, we're a university town, so it gives us a little different feel from just your typical small town USA. But yeah, so Serve More Students is a think tank for tutoring center owners and directors. And basically, we just share lots of ideas and resources with other tutors and basically how do you help grow your business. And so that's what I love about being able to connect with you and all your people and all this networking we get to do and just share with each other and learn from each other.
Yeah, and we were just chatting about that right before the call, just when you got started, when I got started, we had to kind of use some old school tactics to be able to really network, and we weren't networking with the right people. I don't know about you, but I went to some different networking events, and so there would be a Mary Kay consultant, a lawyer, a real estate agent, sometimes an electrician, which is cool if you ever need to call any of those people and you need those services, but rarely did they have their own kids that were struggling or anything like that. So it kind of felt like a big old waste of time, right?
So I feel like tutoring businesses are so unique in the way that they run that so 7 years ago when I was first starting out, I really didn't have many people to ask or talk to. And so I just felt so alone, and I was having to create it all by myself. And that's changed a lot in the last few years. And so, yeah, we are kind of our own little creatures, but we have each other now. And so we can all learn from each other. It's exciting. It's really opened, I think, our field up so much.
Oh my gosh, I totally agree with you. Absolutely, 100%. So as you guys are coming on in, introduce who you are, where you're from, and what you tutor, because we want to be able to get to know you better as well. So we're going to start with just the basic, very first question, you guys, which is, Hannah, how did you get started with your tutoring business?
So back in 2011, I was a school administrator and was working on my doctorate and decided to take a year off to finish my schooling. So finish my doctorate, finish my dissertation. During that time period, I had several parents who reached out to me, former parents of former students, reached out to me about tutoring. I have to be really, really honest with you. I wasn't interested. I said no, over and over again. Two reasons. One, I was trying to focus on school, write that dissertation, get done. And then the whole plan was to go back to a school system and finish my career. And the second part of it was, frankly, I just wasn't interested in doing tutoring. I had done some of it as a teacher kind of on the side, but it wasn't anything I was interested in at that moment. Well, thank you to some very persistent parents who just kind of went on and on and on and continuously kind of hounded me about it. I took on 1 and then 2 and then 3, and it just kind of grew from there. And so I found myself every afternoon running from house to house to house and meeting parents and students and tutoring and then trying to run to the next one. And I quickly realized, okay, first of all, there's a need for a tutoring business here. But secondly, I could serve so many more students if I would have them come to me. So at that point, I started meeting at the local library. We met at a hotel lobby where we had a little private area, and it was kind of swanky and it was cool, but they had free internet. That was really important. Panera, wherever, you know. And then I realized, okay, as it continued to grow, this could be an official, legitimate business. Like, I mean, I was making money and there was a need. And so that's when I finally bit the bullet. I rented a space, opened an official business. High Country Academy is the name of my tutoring center. So that was March 2012, and it has just continued to grow. I started out just by myself, taking on students, and it really does become like your baby. You want it to grow, and it's so exciting to see where it is today, 7 years later.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that is so cool. This is definitely our baby. That is for sure. I mean, we put so much time, energy into putting the pieces into place to be able to make this work, that it does become like this whole new creation of life.
It really does.
But it's so exciting to be able to just, you know, we all like live for those like light bulb moments. We get to see them all the time when we tutor one-on-one with kids. Like, so much more. There are so many more light bulbs happening with the online tutoring or in the in-person tutoring. So much more of those light bulb moments are happening when you get to work with kids one-on-one. Absolutely. Yes. Which is very cool. So then when did you decide to start creating a team? So I opened my business officially March 2012. By that next school year, so August, I realized, and really I was only advertising services to kindergarten through 5th grade. So K-5, because my training was in elementary, that's what I felt most comfortable tutoring. But I was getting a lot of requests at that point for middle school tutoring in subject areas. So at that point in August, I brought on another tutor. He did all of the middle school tutoring. By the end of December, so the end of that calendar year, mid-semester, I realized we were growing so much. I was continuing to do the tutoring, but I was finding I was really having a hard time managing it all. When I would be meeting with students, parents would drop in, they'd be asking about tutoring, they'd be wanting to pay, the phone would ring, everything was happening. It was like, and I felt like it was taking away from the time with my students. So that December, I decided to step back from the tutoring and just focus on growing the business. And so I hired other tutors. So starting in January, I guess it would be 2013, I took on other tutors, and we also went K-12 at that point. And so we were able to offer all of those services. But it took a little bit of time, but really, as I look back, it was super fast. But the big thing for me was there was the demand, the inquiry from client need, but also wanting to be able to provide more services than what I could offer just at that elementary level. Right, right. Yeah, absolutely. Because we all, you know, and even like as online tutors, a lot of us, we only have like, if we can really find a niche area that we can really be known as an expert in, we can actually book our time solid. But here, when we're talking about a tutoring center, it's a whole different ball game. Like, you do have that opportunity to really focus on all of the grade levels, all of the different areas. Do you, when you're hiring, are you looking specifically for people who have like an expertise in a certain area, or do you look for people that could be used in many different areas for your business?
Typically, we are looking for people who have an expertise in a certain subject area. So if we're looking for test prep, SAT, ACT prep, we do GRE prep, then I want somebody who specializes in that. High school maths, sciences, those kinds of things. And then you've got your fundamentals, like teaching children how to read. Not everyone can do that. It takes a super important skill set to be able to do that. So yeah, we tend to do more specialized areas. Now, I think when I find someone who can do multiple things, it's like hitting the jackpot. That is so exciting. I'm just like, oh my gosh, we start going kind of crazy when they can do multiple areas or multiple subject areas. But typically we focus on certain specific areas, those niches.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, in the beginning, when you started hiring your team, did you have any fears about hiring other tutors?
Absolutely. Just full disclosure, I like a lot of control. It's just who I am. And it's not a bad thing, but I have this vision in my head how I want it to run. I want to make sure the services that we're offering are top notch, very professional. And so I was super nervous about bringing other people on, because would they be able to do that? Would they have that same vision that I have? Would they communicate and talk to parents the same way that I do? Are they going to provide the services, the quality of the instruction? Do they value teaching and learning the way that I do? So absolutely, it was scary, but I feel like that's where that hiring process is so important. That interview process, the whole onboarding process, the orientation that we make them go through. You figure that out. And honestly, I listen to my intuition a whole lot as well. But yeah, you're digging in to find out, are they going to be able to do those things? But yeah, it's scary. But once you get those people on board and they do think like you do, in a sense, it can be super successful as well.
Yeah, for sure. So what are some of the benefits that you have found to hiring a team of tutors?
So it definitely increases your profitability. The more students that you can serve, the more profitability for your business. It allows you to offer additional services that maybe you couldn't offer to begin with. It grows your business, so it builds your branding, just more networking outside of, like, within the community and things. So of course we're in our certain area, but you all online. The more people that you have that you're serving, the more they tell other people. So it just continues to grow, and it really it just kind of snowballs, all these different advantages to having more people on your team. But the biggest ones, I think, are the profitability and just being able to offer more services and serve more students.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. You're offering such a valuable, a valuable service to your community as well. Like, and high quality services to your community, which is definitely beneficial. So when you started to grow this team of tutors, what were some of the things you weren't expecting to that began to happen for you?
So early on, so in the beginning, I felt like our demand was growing. We had all these inquiries for tutoring, but I didn't have people to service those. And so I almost kind of felt desperate. And so I would hire just anybody who knew a little bit about high school math, right? And so a lot of times that would backfire. And that's really how I've learned how to hone that whole onboarding process, is through some of these experiences. So just kind of putting people, filling a seat, we know that doesn't work, but desperate times call for desperate measures, and you just want to be able to provide that service. Along those lines, since we are a university town, hiring college students, sometimes they're really, really excellent. They know their content. They can be really, really good. Some of them are extremely reliable and dependable, but then you have those who, let's just admit, are not. They tend to be more transient. Sometimes with part-time work, they take on a job, but then they're just waiting for something better to come along that's going to make more money or give them more hours. If they're not in an education profession, it may be that, or education major, it may be they don't quite fully understand that whole teaching and learning process. Right. Sometimes you find tutors who, especially those college students, every time the university goes on break, they go on break. They disappear, but our students don't have those same breaks. And so those kinds of things. So I learned a lot of that the hard way, making sure you get the right people, going through a very extensive onboarding process, and making sure they're completely committed to your vision and mission and what you're trying to achieve with your tutoring business.
Yeah, I could definitely see how all of that could happen. And I'm glad that you got to experience it all first, so that people can walk through it and not have the same kind of issues, because I can definitely see how people, especially whenever you're hiring other people, it's like you had mentioned before, it's like you have like this desire and this commitment to just provide the best service. And now you need to find the right people to be able to do that as well.
Yeah, I'll add something else to that. Something I learned along the way was, in the very beginning, I didn't have a non-compete as part of the contract that the tutors signed. And so I had a tutor, now I can't prove it, but I am almost certain when he left us, some of his students also left us, which was very timely. And so I'm soliciting our students and taking them. So I had to add a non-compete, and since then that hasn't been an issue. So those are lessons you learn. Sometimes by doing it the wrong way, you know, but some very valuable lessons.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, I think there's a lot of people, like right off in the beginning, they don't even realize what a non-compete is. So for those people that don't know what a non-compete is, can you tell us more about that?
Sure. So in our non-compete, there are two parts to it. One, the first part, they cannot participate in any of the same activities that we do at High Country Academy. So tutoring, basically those are the services that we provide. So they can't work for me and they can't work for any other tutoring agency or online company or anything. They also can't go out and tutor on their own because that becomes direct competition with my business. And being local, that's really important. We have to definitely have that in place. The other piece of it is that once they do terminate their employment with my tutoring center, they cannot participate in those activities for up to 6 months. So they also can't solicit any of our clients or our business. So this non-compete I have it in place for 6 months. I know other businesses do shorter and longer time periods, but I found the 6 months is pretty good for us. And since implementing that, we haven't had any issues. And so it would be interesting. I'd love to hear from you, kind of, what do you think about online with that non-compete? How important would that be in the online world?
I think that would be absolutely important. If you're hiring on some other tutors, I don't think that there is any way that you could run your business without having some kind of a non-compete clause. I see it all the time. Tutors want to play in some of these other formats where they can get students, and I've seen them do some illegal things. So I want you guys seriously to pay attention here and really think about what you're doing. Because if you're choosing, let's say you want to work for Wisant, but you don't like how much you have to pay them in order to work with them, which is the 25%, and you're like, oh, well, I'll just work with them for a week or two, and then I'll get them to come to me, that is morally wrong. It might not be like, you might not be signing anything with that company, but you have to think about, like, you have to live with yourself after doing that, and it is morally wrong. It might not be legally wrong, but I personally feel that is morally wrong because they are the ones that are paying those high prices for all of that advertising. And all you've done is you've come on in and stolen one of their students. And you have already said yes, that you would like to work for that company and be on their website, and you've created a profile and you've created a page, and then you're going to do something icky and illegal like that. That does not sit well with me at all. I just rather not play with that company anyways.
I feel the same way, Joanne. It is. And usually those are their intentions from the beginning. And it is wrong. It's ethically and morally wrong. But yeah, so soliciting business, I think that non-compete is super important. And it really protects you. And so, because anytime you have a tutor working for you, they're learning some of your inside business secrets and things. It's just part of it. They're going to, their policies, procedures. And so when they go out and try to implement those, they're taking your intellectual, your information, your rights, all those things. And then sharing it. So yeah, that non-compete I think is super important.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm so glad that you have that in place, and that, just even having this conversation is going to make other tutors, as they begin to grow their business, make sure that they have that in place as well. So I know this is probably a top question on a lot of people's brains. How do you make sure you have enough students for your tutors?
So that's hard, and it can be really tricky. When we first hire a tutor, we make sure that we have at least 2 or 3 students to give them in the beginning. Now, I don't want to give them more than 2 or 3 in the beginning because I want to make sure they're a good fit for our organization. We've done all this vetting up front, but until they really work with students, you really don't know. You're really taking a risk. And so we start with 2 or 3. We see how it's going. So it's kind of this probationary trial period. If that's going well, we give them more. I think it's super important to be very transparent up front, and we do that from the onset. Like when they first come to interview, I make it very clear that I cannot guarantee work for them. It's all based on our client need, and students come and students go. It's based on how they're performing at school or whatever it is they're coming to tutoring for. Sometimes it's short-lived if it's just for test prep or whatever the case may be. So I make it very clear we cannot guarantee work. But I also think it's important to not hire a tutor and not have any students for them. Because then they're just sitting there. They've taken this job, but they're not making any money because we only pay our tutors based on when they're working with students. So then you've gone through this whole process of hiring. They're excited about having a job, but they don't really have a job because they're not making money. And usually those people aren't going to stick around very long. So you want to have some students. I think it's important when you're first hiring to have a waiting list, get that started, build that up, create that demand. It also creates a little bit of takeaway with your clients, with families and parents. So have a wait list, have students, and then make sure they've got somebody to work with when they first start.
Yeah, that's a great plan to go with. And that way, you know, there's a demand for that position. It's not going to be difficult to get additional students and that kind of stuff. What kind of marketing do you do to be able to get students?
So marketing wise, we do a ton of parent referrals. Majority of our business comes from parent referrals. When they're happy with the services they're receiving, they're seeing confidence in their students, you know, the building, grades are going up, all those things that we know that are direct benefits of tutoring. Those parents want to tell everybody else about it. So we provide parent or incentive referrals. And so if they recommend a student and that student signs on, then the referring family gets a free session. That's our biggest thing. We also use Facebook ads, Google ads. We do some print materials. We work with our local schools and try to get information out into the school districts through local teachers. But really that word of mouth is our biggest thing. We've done some billboards, again, totally different because we're a small town. We can do those kinds of things. And that actually has been pretty beneficial to us. The online world would be totally different. But for me, really, Facebook ads and Google ads, I think, are two of the biggest things. Google ads, we tend to spend more money, but probably produce the most results. Facebook, the algorithm is so tricky. You've got to really understand that in order for it to work, or else you're just kind of throwing money at it. But I do love all the targeting features of both of those.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we kind of stay away from here in the online world, some of those, because your money can just drain away.
Oh, so fast.
And if you don't know how to market to begin with, like you're just learning those strategies, just start throwing your money at Google ads and like Facebook ads. It's just, you're just not going to see that much traction in your business. And then you're going to be like, well, this doesn't work. And so, yeah, we utilize lots of online strategies to be able to get our students. But yeah, that's so I've always thought about the whole idea of being able to play with like billboards for like tutors and like people who want to start their own business. And I've really not gone far with it.
I was surprised because I kind of thought print material, those kinds of things, is kind of going away. Now we've tried radio ads and things like that. We got a little traction, but not much. But the billboard really was successful for us.
Awesome.
But again, a local community thing, you know, so it makes it a little more doable to do that. But yeah, a lot of traction with that.
That's awesome. All right, I'm going to have to get my my graphic artist person to create a billboard.
There you go.
Find a place to put it. I'm right by Milwaukee, so I could easily put that on up and see how many teachers want to be able to start doing some tutoring on their own instead of, you know, working for some of these other companies and that kind of stuff that don't pay very well. But what are your thoughts about like some of these other tutoring companies that pay like $10 an hour for a teacher to have like they have to be credentialed, they have to have so much experience in the school, and then they pay $10 to $12 an hour and then charge $50. What are your thoughts about companies that do that?
So I think you have to really break it down to, first of all, your tutors are professionals. They are quality professionals, and they need to be paid that way. Every market can support a different market. So depending on how much you're able to charge and things like that, I recommend doing more percentages. A certain percentage of whatever you're charging. And I think that's a little more fair. That's sound. It can be expensive running a business, and it's going to be a lot different from an online business versus a brick and mortar. With our brick and mortar, we have those lease expenses, we have utilities, all those things that come into play. So a lot of times people will see that amount that we're charging and they're like, man, you're making a killing. And it's like, well, not really, because you start taking all those business expenses out. But payroll is your biggest expense. But I think it's super important to pay your tutors what they are worth. And also, if you want to attract quality tutors who are professionals and are going to provide quality services, you've got to be willing to pay them.
Yeah.
And I think that has to be a priority in your business plan.
Yeah, for sure. Because how in the world, like, I don't even understand sometimes how these other businesses do it, where they're able to charge so little, except for maybe they're just seeing it as a hobby where they can just earn a couple extra dollars or something. I don't know.
People that don't charge that much usually don't make it very long. They're
That's
short-lived.
That's true. They're very short-lived. That is for sure. So when you hire your tutors, do you hire them as employees or self-employed contractors?
This is super controversial. So when I first started out, I hired them as independent contractors. So I gave them a 1099. It was beautiful. It was cheap. It was easy. Who wouldn't want to go that route? My accountant quickly said, no, you can't do this. This is not, you're not playing by the IRS guidelines. And so he kind of laid it all out. So we did change over to employees. I'm so glad that we did. Yes, it does cost us more in payroll. It is going to cost us more money. Yes, there's more red tape, bureaucracy, paperwork, those kinds of things. However, it's totally worth it. I mean, if the IRS comes after you because you have independent contractors, or you're claiming to have independent contractors, and yet they're, based on their regulations, are considering that they are, or classifying them as employees, you can get charged with some really hefty fines. They'll come after you for back taxes. It gets super expensive. A lot of businesses would end up going under if that happened to them. And the IRS is coming after people. Just when my accountant sat down and started talking to me, he said, I have 2 other clients right now who currently the IRS are questioning their status as independent contractors. So don't get in that situation. I'm also a rule follower, so I just play by the rules. And really, like I said earlier, I like control. And so when I start looking at the list of things that the IRS puts out that determines whether they're independent contractors or employees, there's no question my tutors are employees. We have certain policies and procedures that have to be followed. I'm also hiring them for an indefinite period. They're not there just for one little project. Now, the students may come and go, but they're still on the payroll indefinitely until one of us terminates that situation. So, or that working relationship. They're employees. And I think we as a tutoring profession need to become a lot more honest about that and upfront about that. And really just be honest with ourselves, because I see a lot of tutors who are trying to get by with doing that whole independent contractor, and I don't know, they're skating it's a very thin line there.
It is a very scary thin line. And I do know another company that did have them as self-employed contractors. And so they, your employees are going to be your biggest liability that you have in your business. And if they get unhappy for any reason, they can find any little loophole to throw you under the bus because they don't care, they're angry, they're mad, whatever the case may be. And so this lady ended up, she fired somebody because they were rude to a student, and it was completely unacceptable. Of course, they backlashed, they got mad, and they ended up suing them and saying that they should have been an employee versus self-employed because she made them wear t-shirts to an event, which was then considered by the IRS technically a what do you call it? A uniform. And you cannot have somebody who is self-employed wear a uniform. So because of that, she ended up having to pay $10,000 in back taxes and all of that kind of stuff for all of her employees. And it didn't throw her under the bus, thank goodness. She continued to go on. But these are some of the things, like these kinds of mistakes people need to be aware of so that it doesn't happen to them.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times, while I give my tutors a ton of professional autonomy with what they're doing in those actual sessions with their students, and I think that's important, but everything else is controlled by my business. You know, when they report to work, how they report to work, what they do when they're at work, all those policies and procedures. Yeah. And you've got to have some control if you're going to really run a professional business that's going to be successful. You've got to have that in place. And so, yeah, it really was just a no-brainer for us that they are definitely employees.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Once you started hiring tutors, did you have to change the way that you classified your business? I'm sure you probably started off as an LLC since you had your own building and rental space and all of that kind of stuff. Did you change to an S Corp once you started hiring on other tutors, or have you stayed as an LLC?
We've stayed as an LLC, and that's worked really well for us. I like that protection that it provides. I mean, it is limited in a sense, but yeah. And my accountant has always been in North Carolina. My accountant has said that is totally fine, appropriate, and we have no intentions of changing.
Yeah, yeah. And so with the account, do you have to, with the limited liability, do you have to also get some kind of business insurance to protect you as well?
Yes, we do carry business insurance. So we provide liability insurance. We also, and part of that is making sure we do all the background checks on all of our tutors. That plays into all of that. But yeah, professional liability insurance, the sexual molestation insurance, we carry all of that, which is super important, which in an online, well, I guess online still, in today's world, you never know. But face-to-face, we definitely have to. And we even have certain procedures and policies in place, like we have to have windows on the doors. If a door is going to be shut, you're working one-on-one with a student, those kinds of things. Yeah, so insurance definitely is part of that. You got to have that with that LLC.
Yeah, it's definitely something to be able to keep in mind for that, because it would really stink for something to happen. And then you think because, oh, well, I'm an LLC, you're protected. Yeah, no, you've got to put that extra piece in there. You got to get that insurance in there so that you are totally protected.
Yeah, and even as an individual, so personally, having umbrella policies, I think is also really smart. So it protects you. It's an extra added layer between you and that business, just to make sure that you are personally protected.
Yeah. So what is tell us about your hiring process and how you go about that with your employees. Like, have you found like there's just like certain questions that are like best to ask that like really like key you into like this is going to be a good hire, or what are some of the things that you've learned?
So just to kind of talk you through our process, we first post the job description, so that job posting, and we're very specific about what we're looking for, so the services that they need to be able to provide, but also availability. A lot of people are qualified, but they don't have the availability, and most of our availability is after school hours. And so if you're not available from 3 to 6 p.m., well, that kind of cuts you out of being able to work for us. So we do have some homeschool students and things we serve during the day, but majority of it's going to be after school hours. They submit a cover letter and a resume. In that cover letter, I'm really looking for writing skills and communication skills. I think it's super important if you're going to be an educator. So we go through all of those applications, and then we select, or the resumes, I guess. We select those who, and I work directly with my director who runs a lot of our day-to-day operations. So we sit down together, go through those, and we select 3 to 5, depending on how many applicants that we have had. We ask them to complete a formal job application at that point and list references and all that. We then bring them in for an interview. So the interview is rather extensive. Having been a former school administrator, I did a lot of hiring teachers. Mm-hmm. And so people are really surprised when they come in for an interview for a tutoring position, how similar it is to a teaching position. And I don't think a lot of times they think it's going to be a lot easier. And I don't think it should be. You are teaching. And so I ask a lot of those same questions. What I'm really digging down for, I'm looking for dependability, reliability, their philosophy when it comes to teaching and learning and that whole process. I give them scenarios. We talk about curriculum. So I give a scenario of a student who's coming with that looking for specific needs for that subject area that they're going to be tutoring. And I say, okay, what would you do in this situation? What are you going to do during that first session? How, what kind of diagnostic assessments are you going to use to determine where that student is, where they are academically? How are you going to deal with parents? How are you going to deal with school, classroom teachers, those kinds of things? All of those communication pieces. So we do scenarios. We drill down about availability. We drill down about their commitment to doing this for a long-term period. And that's something I learned early on with them coming and going. Mm-hmm. It makes it really difficult when someone takes a job, works with a student, but is only with them for a couple of months. And that student's wanting to continue, let's say the whole school year, or whatever the case may be. when the tutor is having to change, you lose a lot of the, it's like the student has to almost start over. So you lose a lot of that fidelity. And so we really talk about the importance of being committed to your students on a long-term basis.
Right.
So interview questions, quite a few. We probably ask about 12 to 15 different questions. They then sign a background check release. At that point, we move forward with one or two of those candidates. We call references. We check backgrounds. We make that initial offer. If they accept, they come in, and that's when we do a formal orientation. So that whole onboarding process. We go through our handbook. We go through all of our policies, procedures. We take them on a tour of the center. They meet all of the other tutors or whoever's there at that time. All of those kinds of things. And it's as basic as, here's how you turn on the lights. Here's how you unlock the door. Here's what you do at the beginning of a session, the end of a session, what the room should look like when you're finished. And those are things we have to think about in a brick and mortar tutoring center. Mm-hmm. But then they also sign a contract at that point, and that includes that non-compete and all of that. At that point, at the end of the orientation, we provide them with the information of their first students. They then make that initial contact with the parents, and then they start tutoring. So they're kind of on a probationary period to begin with. We're checking in frequently. My director is always listening in. We don't go sit in on those sessions, but we're always around. We know what's going on. And then if things are going well, we then give them more students at that point.
That sounds like a great plan.
We've had to tweak it as we've gone throughout the year. But I found just the more extensive you are on the front end, the better it is long-term, and you get just better employees all the way around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It definitely sounds like that for sure. So if a tutor doesn't work out, you said you kind of have like that probationary period. What does that look like?
What I found is if we do a really good job on our end in the front, or on the front end, most of the time we don't have to deal with those situations. Okay. But if it's not, then we just pull them in. We have a pretty frank conversation. We do give them, it's almost like putting them on kind of like a growth plan. We say, these are the goals, these are the things we want to see, and we give them the opportunity to change those things. And a lot of times that takes care of it. We don't have any other issues. They're good to go. It's pretty golden. If there are issues, then we just terminate that situation, or we just don't give them any more students. Okay. And then eventually it kind of fizzles out, that kind of thing. I have never had to formally fire anyone, which is really great. But if there's someone who's just not quite as stellar or doing whatever, usually it's a mutual thing, and they realize this is maybe I'm not cut out for this, and they will kind of separate from us, and it really works out. Tutoring is not something people tend to do just for the sake of doing. You have to really have a passion for it and want to do it. And if you're going to follow, and really if you're going to go through that whole onboarding process that we go through, you've got to really want to do it.
For sure.
Yeah, but a lot of times just stop giving them students. They take the hint pretty quickly, and then they tend to make that choice on their own. So
it's been 3 months since I've gotten any students. Maybe I should start looking for another job.
Exactly. Most of the time, like I said, if you do a really good job with that onboarding process, it really does prevent you from having to deal with those issues later.
Well, sure, because you're being super clear on what your expectations are for them in your business and how you would like it to run. And if they want to be able to get more students and continue to really do this because they love it, they enjoy it, it's a passion, then they'll follow those rules. So yeah, I can definitely see how, well, that's really good. I'm glad you don't have to fire anybody, because that would be like really uncomfortable.
It is. It really would be uncomfortable. Nobody wants to have to do that anyway, you know?
Yeah. So now you don't get to do the tutoring anymore. Do you miss that?
Yes and no. I miss the time, like actually with my students, but because I'm in the center so much, I still get all those interactions. I'm with them so much, like in dealing with their parents and those kinds of things. And I may drop into sessions and things like that. I get to live vicariously through my tutors, which is even more exciting, really. But yeah, not all the planning and the day-to-day, all of that stuff. Nope, don't really miss that. But yeah, no, I get to really live vicariously through them. So there are moments that I really miss it, but just being in that environment and listening to all the awesome things that are happening around me and listening to all the good sessions that are happening and all that, that's all I need. That does it. That's what's exciting, and it really just, it keeps that passion going.
Yeah, for sure. That is really, really awesome. And so what are some of the, now that you do take on most of the administrative duties for running this, what are some of the things that you have to take care of to run your center?
So there's all of the scheduling stuff. So we handle all of that. We have a master schedule that we maintain. So anytime students are rescheduling and things like that, which we know happens all the time, the tutors have their certain parts and they have a shared calendar they update, but then we keep up with all of that on our end as well. So then there's the invoicing, all of the bookkeeping. Invoicing is a huge piece of it. All of the bookkeeping, the payroll, making sure we're in compliance with the federal government, the state, all of those things. There's the hiring new tutors. So that whole hiring process, the onboarding, advertising, really the list just goes on and on. There's so much with running a business. If you're running a successful business, making sure, holding tutors accountable, things like that, dealing with classroom teachers, making sure that policies and procedures are being handled, all the insurance that has to be in place, dealing with the landlord. Yeah, it's a lot when you really stop and think about it. It's quite a bit, but it's also exciting things. It's fun, I promise.
Yeah, for sure. I wake up every single morning. I'm just like, oh, I am so grateful I get to do this for another day. Yay!
Exactly.
And it sounds like you're very similar to that because you're so passionate about this.
Yeah. And it doesn't feel like work, really, if you do what you love.
It does feel like play, doesn't it?
It does.
I get to play every day, all day. That's kind of how I see it. Like, even though people look at me, they're like, Joanne, you work from 5 in the morning until 8 at night. Like, nobody can do that. Well, they can if they take a nap in the afternoon. We were joking about that before. Like, I take a nap every day. But I also am managing like my family, my students, the tutors, all of that kind of stuff, like throughout the day. And it just feels like play all day. Like I get to do a whole bunch of stuff that I love to do all day long.
Exactly. Well, and like I told you earlier, Joanne, the fact that you get to take a nap every day to me means you have officially made it. Like that is the definition of success. I'm rather envious, to be quite honest. I'm going to figure out how I can make that happen.
And to all of you who have young ones still at home, and that's like the only time that you can actually get any work done, I'm sorry, don't worry. You'll grow out of that stage and you will be able to then take a nap when they go into school, okay?
That's great.
So now you have created some really awesome programs to be able to guide teachers in this process of what to do when it comes to running a brick and mortar tutoring business, along with what does the onboarding process look like for hiring tutors and all of that. Tell us a little bit about your programs.
Yeah, so I started to serve more students last year because I realized I was in all these Facebook groups and networking groups and talking to other tutors, and they were all asking the same questions over and over again. And a lot of it was about onboarding tutors and building your team and growing your team. But even just the basic things about how do you start a business? How do you do this? How do you do that? Policies, procedures, got a lot of questions about that. And so I found I was just answering the same things over and over again. And people always wanted examples. You know, can you share your contract with me? Can you share this with me? And so I decided, let me just put all of this information into an online course. And so that's what I did. And so I created the Tutoring Center 101 online course, and it covers everything from beginning to end. It's everything that I have learned through trial and error over all these years that I wish somebody would have said, here's a framework. Here, just take this and do it. But it's all of that stuff. We start with how to actually start a business. What kind of insurance do you need? And we go into details about all the different types of businesses. How do you select an office space if you're doing brick and mortar? What are the things to take into consideration? How do you even, where do you get furniture? What kind of furniture do you need? What does the setup look like? There are all those things that you have to think about. We go through policies and procedures. I give you sample ones that I have. I give you my whole policy manual and just say, here, take this, tweak it, and make it your own. There's a whole module on building your team. And so we start from the very beginning, like, how do you know when it's time to hire? And who do you hire? What are you looking for in a tutor? Through that whole process, from the job posting, and I provide sample postings, to the job descriptions, to the job application, that whole onboarding process, I walk step by step. I provide the contracts that we use. So all you do is take it. Those are just swipe.
Wow.
You take it, you plug in your information, and it's ready to go. You can tweak it, make it your own, however you want.
Yeah.
There's a whole module on enrolling students. Once you've got tutors in place, you got to set how do you actually get those students going, that whole onboarding process of them. We talk about marketing, advertising. The Tutoring Center 101 course covers pretty much everything for anyone who is either wanting to start completely from scratch from the beginning, or someone who just tutors one-on-one, so just a one-man show, one-woman show, and then wants to grow that into an actual tutoring center model. Mm-hmm. And so it helps them through step by step. Now, if you're interested in only certain parts of that, so you don't need the whole kit and caboodle, but just certain things, we have all of those modules available as individual like online mini courses. And so you can go through and just get what you need. So if you're interested just in the onboarding process or growing your team, that module is available, and it breaks down the difference between employees and independent contractors and how do you know which one you have. And we talk about the IRS and all those regulations, the actual hiring process, the onboarding process. How do you pay your tutors? How much should you pay your tutors? And that was one of the questions you were asking earlier. And so it goes into detail about kind of doing a market analysis. And then at what point do you hire other staff? So they're tutors, but then do you need somebody, well, and again, brick and mortar a little bit to clean? Do you want a curriculum director? Do you want a director who actually runs the day-to-day things? Maybe an office assistant. So all these things, somebody to do advertising and marketing. And as you grow, you can start to add those things or those people to your team. And so when do you do that? What should you be looking for? What are the considerations you need to take into mind? So all of that stuff's available. I mean, it's just like, really, it's all in my business, inside secrets. And so I take it and just make it available to you. And I think you put a link.
I did.
At the bottom of the...
Right in the description, you guys. So if you have not seen that link yet, definitely check that out. I always have a section for links that we've talked about in here, and I've added all of the courses that Hannah has available through Teachable. You can just click on that and just check to see, like, are any of these things that I need in place? Now, I am going to tell you guys, I was taking a look at some like legal people online and some of the things that they're doing to help, like maybe with like crafting just like a non-compete or something like that. And it's going to cost you for even just one document up to like $900 for even just like one document like that. So what Hannah is actually offering you guys is absolutely incredible. If this is where you want to be able to go with your business eventually, this is definitely something that you have to check out. And if you like the content that we have talked about so far in our interview together today, please hit that like button and feel free to comment below. I hope that this is really, really useful for you guys as you're thinking about how to grow your business and be able to move that way. So you have just created like just a stellar program to really be able to guide people step by step through this entire process. Hannah and I were discussing this at the beginning, like we had to like figure all of this stuff out the hard way in the beginning because there weren't really too many people that had like treaded this path to being able to do it effectively and efficiently in the kinds of ways that we have found that work today. So thank you so much for taking the time to be able to hang out with us today, Hannah. We really appreciate it.
Oh, I have thoroughly enjoyed it. And Joanne, thank you. And if anybody has any questions, you guys are always welcome to email me. My email is Hannah, HANNAH, @serveMoreStudents.com. If you have any questions about anything we've talked about today, you just want to go in a little more depth about that, I'd be happy to do that. But Joanne, this has been fun just chatting. So thank you. You can tell that we both just love what we do. So that's what's exciting.
You know what? This is the thing, you guys. Like when you find the area that you're passionate about and you get to find other people that are passionate about it, you get to play all day with them. And it's like, this is like what we get to do. It's so much fun. And being able to hang out with you has been a blast. I've learned a ton. And if don't ask me questions, you guys, about starting an online team with Hire Tutors, definitely utilize that email because I'm just going to send it to her.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I have no experience in that area, nor do I think I ever will have any experience in that area. So again, thanks for taking the time to be able to share that, to really get people thinking about, is this going to be a right step for me? Or should I just continue to grow and getting more students for myself? You know, those are just things that we all have to think about when we're running our own tutoring business, aren't they?
It is, absolutely. And it's so much to think about, but like you said, the groundwork has been laid. We've done all the hard work, so just happy to share at this point.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait to connect with you again and help you serve more students and be able to get more clients being able to find you and your resources that are phenomenal. So thanks again, and everybody out there, you guys, my name's Joanne Kaminski, the online tutor business coach, helping you get found, hired, and referred. Bye, everyone.
Bye.